everyone, welcome back to Beekeeping with Natalie, or welcome to if you are new. Today we're going to be putting nucs into 10 frames, which I know everybody's bored of at this point, so am I, but we're doing it again today, and I'm actually talking about setting up a new yard and what that looks like. So on Wednesday I posted a video talking about drilling holes into your pallets, so that's what I did here just now to all of them, and then they're finally ready to be put into 10 frames. So we're going to talk about that today and just talk about what it looks like setting up a new yard. Now on Wednesday I kind of talked about, if you want to check out that video, it just kind of talks about what you want to look for in a yard, some things that people have talked about, if it's an issue or not in our area, and just all of that fun stuff. So we're going to go through these nucs today, see how they're looking. Now usually when we're starting a new yard, I like to start with like some pretty strong hives. That's what our last yards, that's what they look like. And at this point they're our production yard for sure. Now this one's a little different. We actually have some different queens that we ended up using for this year, and I wanted to keep them separate from our queens that we've been trying to get throughout the last few years. So that's why we have these ones here, just to kind of separate them out, just to see whether or not, like, if they get more aggressive, if they're like more aggressive than ours, if they don't build up as much, just to see the difference a little bit and prepare for that and have them in a separate spot. That's why we did that today, and that's kind of how we picked these hives. Now these are lighter nucs, like these ones are pretty light, and they're kind of the duds from everything that we sold. We sold all of our nice ones, and now we have just these crappy ones. Not actually, but what we're gonna do in the next, like, hopefully week or so is put just a solid frame of brood and food in here, and that'll help them build up a lot. Our honey flow is coming to an end. It's pretty much over. Now I tell people this all the time, I don't count on a fall flow. I don't prepare my bees as if we're gonna have a fall flow, because sometimes we will, but a lot of times we don't. So I'm not gonna count on it this year at all, because this year has been pretty crappy with just our main flow in general. Now, I'm not in a rush, but just to save a little bit of time, I'm not gonna go through this first and then decide. I'm just gonna move them over and look at them as I'm moving them over. I talked about this also. We have these little clips on these pallets, which I really like. So I'll clip this box in, and what I do when I'm moving a hive over is I start by moving the box off first. So then anybody that's out there, now it is earlier in the morning, but anybody that is out there right now will just come fly straight back into here. There's a little bit of sawdust right there, but another little tip that, oh, so much for a video on this, talking about how much I like them. Hold on. Okay, there we go. Another little thing, if you're gonna do pallets and you're gonna do frame feeders, I talk about different feeders all the time. Now usually I like to use buckets, but like this time of the year, I'm gonna start wanting to use frame feeders because one, it's warmer outside so you can use them. Two, robbing season is about to start, and buckets, I don't know what it is, but there tend to be more robbing on top of the hive, and if you're gonna do that on a smaller hive like this, you really don't want robbing at all. So I'm gonna do an inside feeder, which is just these simple frame feeders here. Now you gotta watch out for these, because this morning, actually, I haven't told my mom this, I was getting all like 11 of them, and there was a giant black widow in there, so I had to get rid of that one. I think Cayman filmed a video on that one time, and then ever since then, I've always checked these frame feeders for spiders, and they're always in there. So definitely check those just in case, especially here in Missouri, they're really bad. I don't know what it is about bees, but they tend to attract them. Anywho, now, even though these are ladder nucs, we're gonna give them foundation because we're gonna feed them pretty heavily in the next couple weeks here in our dearth, so they should be able to build it up a little bit. Now, if you have drawn comb and you have smaller hives like these, I would typically recommend doing that. I have a few drawn frames that I'm probably gonna put in here. I think these nucs are, there's some other ones out here that look even smaller, so I think I'll put drawn comb in those ones instead. Anyway, moving on, I'm gonna put all the foundation on the outside and then basically set the nuc up as it was in their pro nuc right in the center here. Back to what I was talking about, frame feeders. I gotta focus here. When I have each box on here, when you have each box, I like to put the frame feeder in the corner here, so the one closest to the middle. That way, whenever I come back to feed, if I'm using whatever you're using, we're usually using like a garden hose, you can just tilt the lid off a little bit. I'll show you what that looks like at the end here, just to where you have enough room to fill these up, and then each feeder is going to be right here in each 4 corners. So it just makes it a little bit faster. You get to the point where you're willing to do just the small things to make beekeeping a little bit quicker, especially when it's hot like this. I'm willing to do anything. So I even got up early just because I didn't want the heat, so if that says anything. All right, so these ones, like I said, a little bit smaller. The pattern isn't my favorite. Now these aren't our queens. Kidding. The guy we got them from actually would probably laugh at that, so I can make that joke. So not the best pattern, but hopefully they'll kind of kick up here, and hopefully like when coming out of winter or springtime, they'll be looking pretty good. Now, like I said, not the best, but they do still have some brood in there, so that's good. I think the queens, all these queens should be marked. So also, we came over here last night and we moved these. If you don't know, you're technically, or usually you move bees during the night. Usually right when like sunset happens, that's when we'll start to do it, just in the dark. That way you get all of your forager bees back. So anybody that's out there comes back to the hive. You're still, of course, gonna miss a couple, but that's just bound to happen. That way they're all full and ready to go, move them to their yard. It's usually, it just depends. It's normally like 9 o'clock or something for us here. And then we come back the next morning, which is today. And then I'm moving them into their 10 frames. So moving them in the Nucs were really easy. I do like setting out yards up with Nucs because it's just a lot easier that way because they're smaller, lighter, easier to move. It just means you have to come back the next day to put them into their 10 frame. Now, of course, I didn't find the queen in probably the smallest hive ever, but it's okay. We're gonna do one more here, show you what that looks like. Now, I have noticed with frame feeders, I don't know if they're just a little bit bigger, but they tend to be kind of difficult when it comes to putting your last frame in. There we go. All right, so like I said, pretty small, but we'll come back, add a frame of brood or 2, and get them going a little bit. I talked about this at the expo and a couple other conferences. Having a resource hive is a good reason for this because I just have a couple hives that need some brood. So if I go to a resource hive and pull from that, it's gonna kick them up really fast, and that's gonna benefit a bunch of other hives. So having one specific hive to help out other ones is really helpful, and I recommend it. And then these are I just call them bucket lids. I like to have frame feeders and bucket lids on top just so I can do both. It is pricey that way, but it's really helpful. So what you can do is just pull this off and then do your bucket this way, and then just snap this mason jar lid in here. I don't know, I think we buy these in bulk from the Amish store close to us, and they're great. So here's what I was talking about with the frame feeder. So when it's cold outside or they're just pissy that day and I don't want to get fully into the hive, but I have to feed, what I can do is just lift the lid off and slide it over and then fill the feeder from right here. So then I can do that on all 4 of these, and then it just makes it a little bit more faster and efficient. So that's what we're doing today. Let's do one more. I think somebody might have grabbed the wrong box, but we'll do it anyways. There's no frame feeder in here, but it's okay. Kind of switching around here. Let's see what this one looks like. They've got a little bit of weight to them. There's just not very many bees in here. And these just snap in. Now the thing about these also, there's just a couple things you'll have to change. If we at least had to change when using these pallets, because like these lids are the only thing that you can kind of use. You can use other kinds of lids, but like telescoping lids don't work with these because they're just too close. There's just a couple things about pallets that do suck, especially with tip testing. That's one thing that I don't love. You can do it to where you tip test it this way, but then that's still harder to see, especially when you have a double deep right here that has like 3 supers on it. You can't really see it very well, but if you have anything right there, you can't tip that all the way back or else it's just gonna stop about right here. So tip test can be difficult on a pallet, but of course you can just pull the box off, pull it up and off, and then do it that way. But when these deeps are in the middle of summer and they're super heavy, you don't really want to do that. So that's one thing about them, and then having to change the lids can be kind of annoying, but I actually prefer these lids more because it's less equipment, it's less work, I guess, and they're just easier. So if you're thinking about making a change to, I think they're migratory lids or something like that. I always mess up how to say it. I would recommend it, they're great. I'm not really looking for the queen. I should be, but these nukes were actually, I believe, checked yesterday. Make sure that they were good and ready to move. We've got a small patch of brood. She's actually got a good laying pattern here. So this is just full of eggs, actually. That's good. Got a lot of pollen in here too. I think it's milkweed. Is that what it is? That's what's actually, they're on it a lot right now. And now it's only in some of our yards. It's kind of weird, but that's the one thing that I've noticed them on a lot right now. Anything else? Not really. I don't think I'm gonna find a queen in this video. I don't know what happened there. Well, I also wasn't the one driving last night, so if this queen got smushed, it's not really my fault. I think everybody knows the answer to who it was. All right, well, we're gonna pretend like we did find her and it's good to go. I'm gonna come back over here and add a frame feeder to this corner, and then we'll call it good. So that's pretty much it. That's all we're doing today. I don't know if I talked about the entrances, but it's pretty much explained or self-explanatory. They're just right here, built in. They're great. So the only equipment that you really need with these pallets is your box and your lid, and then everything in the hive. So anyways, I think that's pretty much it. We're gonna go through, finish out all of these colonies here, put them into their 10 frames, build them up hopefully soon. And I think that's about it. Thanks for watching today's video. Follow along more bee adventures and be here next time on Beekeeping with Natalie.